I now invite my colleagues, May, Rosalia. No, sorry, Dania, May, Zahra, me. For a workshop on how multilingual and digital resources can allow for the inclusion of families and communities. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Thank you, Alex, for this very entertaining activity. So one of the goals of this project was to discover the extent to which Binogi, a very innovative resource, could enable families to collaborate with schools and support their children on content to be taught. For instance, helping with their homework. I mean, if you have children, you know what it is to have a frustrated child coming home and saying, I did not understand a word of what the math or the physics teacher said. And then when you don't know what they're working on, how can you help them? How can you support them? Okay, so yeah, so if you don't know what is being taught, it's up to jump in. So the idea was that the flexibility of this online resource and the accessibility of their own language would allow for active participation of parents and families who wanted to, right? So Binogi has been an important tool for this aspect of the research. What we did very soon is that we added to the content of Binogi an aspect that did not yet exist. That is the comparison of Ontario schools program with those of the countries from which the families were arriving. And we started with Syria and then ended up with 10 countries. So the idea was this time to develop a reciprocal perspective about the issue of science content and to enter in a dialogue with the families and the communities. So I'm extremely grateful to Dania, May, Rosalia, Zahra, Media, and many others, without whom none of that would have been possible, because they shared with us not only their language, not only their literacy skills in that language, but also their knowledge of math, science, and of the educative system in their own country. So thank you very much.
I came to Canada when I was in grade 10 from China. You know, whatever we learn in Canadian math curriculum for high school, I already learned all of those when I was in grade 6 or 7 when I was in China. However, I was still struggling very much with my math subject, not because of those math problems, but because of my language barriers. So I couldn't understand any of those math questions in English, especially those word problems. So I failed my first math test in high school. And I came to my math teacher to ask if I can use dictionary for my future exam or test. And she refused my request. And she said, you have to get familiar with your English in math. And you have to get familiar with those math problems in Canadian context, in North American context. You couldn't rely on dictionary for the rest of your whole life, right? So I was very struggling for the whole high school for my math subject because of not understanding those questions.
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to try something new now. We're presenting using Canva. If you would like to go to canva.live and add the code 004829. If anytime through the presentation you want to add any question or comments, that will pop up, we'll be able to see it. And then at some point, if we ask you for responses, you'll be able to do so. It's canva.live. The code is 004829. And I'm just going to have it here on the screen. So I'm going to try it and say hello, you're welcome to. Okay. So what we're going to do today, we're going to share insights, as we mentioned in the morning, that relate to working with families and supporting families of multilingual students. We decided to take a case study approach So rather than just kind of tell you some strategies and findings, we're going to present to you some actual real case studies that we have collected throughout, a number of years of research working with teachers, families, and students. And so the way it's going to go, we're going to have case study one. We'll comment on it. We'll hear your insights, case two, case three, case four, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah, here? Okay. What we did is, as Emmanuelle mentioned earlier, there is the need for a reciprocal knowledge. And really, when we work with families, we really have to have that understanding and respect that we're learning from them just like they're learning from us. And I think having that attitude has really helped us about this research, and communicating that with teacher has been really important. What we wanted to do is we worked with families, we developed lots of resources. We wanted to share these resources with them. So we shared some curriculum resources like science and math resources, but also we tried to actually attempt and learn about curriculum resources from different countries that represent the backgrounds or our families. Second, we wanted to look at some ministry resources and share some ministry resources that are geared towards families. We added those to our websites, and I think in a minute we'll show you some of our resources. Should I start that one? It's the distance that makes it. Yeah. Okay. I think this is easier for me. And then lastly, Binogi resources have been paramount in actually helping us connect with family. And we'll show you through the case studies how we some of the cases we encountered as we talked about Binogi and tried to work with families regarding to Binogi. So as you see here, what we've done is we found parent workshops to be extremely important. We'll show you some examples and videos at the end of today's sessions. But we felt that parent workshops were a great way where we get to actually communicate with families, talk to them, share with them resources, letting them know about Binogi, how to use Binogi, or any other resources, but also to hear insights from family. So it goes both ways. We're sharing our expertise and knowledge, but we're also listening to their voices, to their concerns, to their expertise, and coming with an open mind rather than just being the expert educators, actually listening to parents and what they have to offer. You see over here on the slide some examples of, for example, posters like the concept detective that we have brought. We usually printed those large concept detectives shared with families, invited families to actually, similar to what kind of May did, but with simpler terms, to share some concepts and what are they called in their own languages. We've done multilingual posters or bilingual posters where families, were invited step by step to access Binogi resources, access Escape website. We're told about how they could actually, support their children at home. And then we've done also throughout our workshops, organizing in some schools where there are large populations speaking different languages, inviting families to speak and share with each other, their expertise and experiences as speakers of certain families. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to go through 4 case studies. Each case study is actually, accumulation of our experiences from workshops and other encounters with parents and teachers that we hope that today, by shedding the light at it, we can think deeper about, okay, it's great to have multilingual tools. It's great to have digital technologies, but what are some issues that we may encounter as educators? And how can we actually think together about how we can actually, problem solve and move forward? So case 1, and I think, Emmanuelle, you've had even an encounter with one of the parents like this, where this was earlier, even during the pilot years, where there was a workshop and Emmanuelle approached one family and she's like, look at Binogi, it's great. Your child can listen to it in, Arabic or whatever language. And then the mom said, well, but that my child doesn't understand my language. So, you get those responses, and rather than being disappointed right away and discouraged, like, oh no, I came in really excited with this great resource. And what do I hear? That the parent now is saying, oh, well, my child doesn't speak the language. What I think Emmanuelle had suggested at the time, well, you speak that language, right, as a parent. So even though the child might not actually have mastered that language, whether it's Arabic, Dari, whatever language it is, the parents does. And even if the parent doesn't know English, what happened in that case, and I know Emmanuelle have narrated this story over and over, and I always like to tell it to my students, is that suddenly there's like a light bulb. The mom suddenly realized yeah, well, my child doesn't understand Arabic, but I do. And I've been struggling to connect with my child's learning. I've been struggling trying to connect with them. If I actually watch the video or read the transcript in my own language and understand the concept, then I'm more likely to actually support my child when they have a homework. At least I will have a feeling or a sense of what they're learning. And in many cases, sometimes the children may have the oral communication with the families, but maybe they're not really very familiar with the written or the academic language. And using a digital tool in this, case allows for that connection. There are other cases where, families feel disconnected, or they say, I don't speak English, or, my family speak, my child doesn't speak my language. So we wanted to do to chat. You can either go to menti.com. There is the QR code. The code is 15657965. Or we can do it old fashioned. You can just talk to your elbow partner and discuss with them. Do you think multilingual resources such as Binogi benefit family if the child does not read home languages or if the parents don't understand school language? Again, because we don't have much time and I know we need to leave here by 4, so I'm just going to time 1 minute where you can either add your comment on Menti or you can talk to your partner or both. Wait. Okay, time is up, but we'd love to hear from you. We have the mic over there. I'm going to look also at Menti results and see if anybody has entered results. But what are your suggestions? What do you feel? I have it here. Maybe I'll share screen. Oh, it's in there? Okay, perfect. So some of you said absolutely they can have a sense of what's happening. Yeah. It may help them to learn with their children and support children at home. Even developing oral academic language is beneficial. That's a really interesting one. So by watching the videos, if the child can't read but can speak the home language, child and parent can verbally discuss the topic. And of course, any other insights? I see a number of you discussing some issues here. Yeah, please, Elena.
I think we talked about like having different age groups because at some age groups, children really don't know what's happening in school. Like we just had lunch or we had gym or we had a break, but what topic is being covered? So how would you address that?
Okay. So like the child does not know what's happening. Okay. So maybe we can add a layer to that. Is communication is important. So not only providing resources, but also having frequent suggestions, whether through workshops or working with families. Or I don't know if anybody in the audience have any suggestions where we can actually communicate what's happening now. So rather than just say, here is Binogi, it's amazing, we can focus it down and say, right now we're doing electricity. Here are a couple of videos that would probably be helpful. Watch these with your child, whether we post it on Google Classroom or just tell parents about. Thank you, Elena. Yes, Sudashri over there.
Thank you. So I think like even though the languages like the parents and child, they don't speak the same language, this tool will give them opportunity to work together. So their relationship would build, and the support, the emotional support the child would have from parents, which is very important for learning, I think. So these kind of things can happen.
Great. Thank you so much, Sudashri. What I'm hearing, it doesn't have to be perfect. The child's language doesn't have to be perfect. Yours doesn't. But this could be a place where it can ignite the learning and start the learning. And we have one more. Provided the child knows what topic is being covered in class. Yeah, that's a good one. So again, this adds the importance of communication with families and providing support. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I have like a small comment. okay, so if the parent is helping the child at home, like with the L1, right? And then the student has to present that lesson in English or L1 in the classroom. So that's like I missed that connection. Is the teacher helping to present that in English or in L1 as well? So
I think it depends on the context. And please, I mean, experts in the room here, but I'll give my 2 cents and then you can talk. But it depends on the context. What we're saying is that we can still use it for different ways. So what I would say, translanguaging comes in here really nicely and clearly, where the child could actually be listening to the parent explain in Arabic, and then they review or whatever language home review in their own language. And then depending on what the teacher, what arrangements has happened with the child, is the home language being used as a way to kind of rehearse and think through topics, and then the child is learning in the school instructional language like English, or is a child as a level where the teacher is being actually accommodating and allowing the child to present or solve or whatever in their own language? I think that depends on the context, but I know from translanguaging a lot could happen and different ways could happen depending on the context. I would love it if teachers can actually accommodate, like we said, through Binogi. If this child wants to do the assessment in whatever language they want, the teacher will have access in whichever language the teacher can see that the child has got the concept right. But I feel the big idea here is there are lots of possibilities. Don't let these, just the idea that the child doesn't speak the language fully or is not aware of the academic language, or the parent is not fully conversant in English or French, deter you from using the tool. There are so many creative ways that we can actually do to problem solve and to get started, to allow the parents and kind of narrow the gap between the parents and the child that sometimes results from coming to a new educational system. So a lot of insights that we gained from this research is that we found a lot of parents who used Binogi found it very engaging. It's a good tool to support children at home. It's a good tool to track progress. It's a good tool to, even like Elena, I think it was mentioned, like sometimes you ask your kids, what did you do at school? And they're like, nothing, or we played. So this could be a place where you can actually spark and start the conversation as they discuss topics, or say, oh, this is how the teacher taught us, or we didn't learn about this, or this is cool, or what do you think about this? Even talk as a parent about, well, when we grew up, this is how we learned to do it, but that's an interesting way to do it. I think workshops and communications are really important. The tools are there, but from experience, even with teachers, if we don't actually provide the opportunities for parents and teachers to actually try the tools, it's harder. So having that workshop is really a good opportunity to problem solve, to learn about parents' insights. And if they're struggling, we discuss these. And even discussing things such as, where might child be able to present their work in the home language could be something that would be addressed during these workshops. Provide the family with a roadmap in their language for using Binogi. And also, as we said, maybe sometimes narrowing it down. So, starting with the general Binogi, but say, this week we're going to do electricity, look at these two. And then be respectful and willing to hear parents' perspective. Do we have that? I'm going to check, but a lot of times teachers will say, well, the parents say, no, my child doesn't want to listen to it. So what do we do? But I'm not going to spoil the list of the cases. I will invite my colleague to introduce case 2, Zahra.
Sure. So, yeah, sure. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So the case that I want to talk about is the case of like educated parents that have kind of intermittent or interrupted students who didn't have the opportunity to study for some time, for a while, but parents are really educated and they can help them. The case that I'm going to talk about is like an Afghan father who left his country like in 2015, but his son left Afghanistan in 2022, and he didn't have the opportunity to study for 7 years. So when the father, sorry, came to our workshop and found about our resources and the Binogi and could kind of figure out what the material and the content and the curriculum is, he kind of found ways to help his child, because before that he didn't know what he need to do to figure out what the curriculum and material is and how he could help. So the takeaway of this kind of case is that if parents are involved in the education and educators and parents are connected, it kinds of bring the whole community and like parents, educators, everyone to help to these kinds of students who didn't have the opportunity to study for some time. And that can help like all the educators benefit from the knowledge of their parents, the rich knowledge that they have before this to help these kids. And like our website gives this opportunity for parents to learn about the curriculum of Ontario in their own languages. We've managed to translate the ministry resources in parents' languages, in very different languages, and it makes it easier for parents to understand what is going on with their children and can help their own knowledge to help their kids.
Thank you, Zahra. So I will share next more information about the resources that we have created, particularly the family portal, which you might have heard about during the presentations, and which is hosted on our Escape website. So escapeprojects.ca. I invite you to scan the QR code or log in on your phones. So what we have done is we have created the family page in many languages. So if you look at the right corner, you can see the family portal. And we have created the family portal in languages including Arabic, French, Farsi, Urdu, Spanish, Chinese, Bangla, Pashto, and Korean. And basically, what we have done is we also created an English version so that the teachers will have access to these resources and they know what they're referring the parents to. The resources in the family portal, and Dania mentioned that before, include curriculum resources, ministry resources, and Binogi resources. Now, how is this helpful to parents? Having the family page in the home language helps create bridges and also provides an opportunity for parents to access the curriculum. It also provides them an opportunity to support their children at home in science and math specifically, and improves communication between home and the school, which is also very important. Now, we have many resources that parents can use to support their children at home, and this by itself fosters a welcoming and inclusive environment, just to see the language, hosted on the website and the family page in that particular language. So moving on, next I will present case 3, another real life scenario that we have encountered during the research. So basically, one of the teachers said, I don't give homework because the students don't do it. So we want to understand the situation. So why don't they do their homework at home? And I'm going to ask you next to share your insights with us. So you can type in the chat or, just share. Yeah. Anyone? Why don't they do their homework at home?
We experience with the new Canadians, a lot of them have jobs. Like I had students in grade 11 and 12 last year, and often they're older than that. They're placed there for their language skills. And especially in Hamilton where we are, there's an Amazon fulfillment center. And some of them are working from like 11 at night till 4 in the morning. And then they're coming to school in the morning. And so they're just not going to do homework. And I think a lot of us at Glendale, at least, we don't really assign homework anymore. We try and get time in school to do that. And unless it's like a 4U course, something like that, where it's going to be expected, we don't really do it. We try and give time in school because they're not going to do it at home.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, we have heard that during our school visits. Anyone else?
Lots of students, I find that they find it difficult to finish their homework by themselves. And especially if the parents are not involved in helping them to solve the homework, they won't do it. They'll just say and they'll give you an easy answer. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. So that's why they don't do homework. They find it difficult.
Thank you, Wafa.
There is Carrie who says, I really do not assign much in my course. What I get back most often, the work that comes back is not theirs. I like to assign reading to them, practice the reading, self-select as homework. They don't have access to the same supports at home, sometimes too, accommodations. Thank you, Carrie, for sharing that with us.
So the reasons might include the language. So students might have difficulty with the language, and their parents also can't help them because of the language. So in such a case, the parents might feel isolated, helpless. They don't have access to the curriculum content. Other reasons could be the difficulty of the material, as you mentioned, Wafa. Another reason is the competing responsibility. We have heard in, one of the schools that we went to, a teacher said that one of her students told her that he could only attend school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or 3 days a week because he has to work. Another teacher mentioned that, her student told her that he could not do the homework because he was up until 2 a.m. working the night before. So, these are competing responsibilities. Sometimes they have to take care of someone else in the family, help take care of a family member, for example. So there are several reasons for that. The next. Yeah. True. True. So, Rob was saying that some parents don't see the value of, doing homeworks at home. They expect that the students, would be doing the work at school and that would be enough. So Rob was highlighting that they need to be educated into the value of doing the homeworks at home. So next, we're going to look at, how connecting parenting support with the curriculum and the new educational system for newcomers can help address some of the challenges that multilingual students face. So we'll focus on some of the resources that the research team have created, and we have created those resources in the home language. So if you look at the first resource, which is on the right, this is an overview of the new science curriculum for parents in Arabic. And we have that in all of the different languages that we have on the website. So this will show the parents the main topics that are covered in each strand in science in each grade. So it kind of provides an overview of what they're learning at school and helps, the parents gain more access to the curriculum. If you look at the second resource on the left, you can see this is the key expectations and key concepts in Arabic, specifically for grade 8. So it goes one strand at a time. So for each strand, what are the expectations and what are the key concepts? And again, these are in the home language. So it helps to connect school and home and helps the parent in supporting their children. I think, so we're going to present another case.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. Sorry, there's lots of ideas flying to into my mind. But for instance, one of the schools said that they organize a visit with the families and with the students to the library in the neighborhood to make sure they discover not only the possibility to borrow books, but also the possibility to sit and have internet and work on, for instance, Binogi with their children or send their children to the library so that they can access whatever.
I'm so sorry, because I have a slide in my presentation that you don't have over here. So what I wanted to mention before we move on to case 4 was the ministry resources. So what we have done is we looked at the ministry website and we found actually resources translated into the different home languages. So one resource, if you look at the ministry website, is a math guide for parents for grade 9 students specifically. And what we have done is we kind of, wrote a description of the resource and we added the link to the ministry website to kind of, show parents that this is accessible, that this is there, because it might be difficult for some parents to go on the ministry website and find where that resource is. So we try to simplify things on the family page and add those resources to kind of give them more access to the curriculum. And now we'll move on to case 4. I'm sorry.
What is interesting also is that in one of the workshops we gave, we distributed a survey at the end, and some of the answers that we got from the parents themselves was please give me homework. So it came back a couple of times. So once parents discovered what we're doing in schools, so for all of a sudden they said, please do that. It's important to them. Add to it. So it's kind of an eye-opening for them. You know, our school is a place that is quite impressive for parents. To me, it's still, I still find it impressive when I go to the school of my children. And so for them, it's hard to get that if it's not explicitly brought to them. Okay, I'm supposed to present case 4, so I will. Something that we heard a lot in the research is some students refuse to use their home language. Sometimes they say it comes from their parents. So their parents are saying, no, you're here to learn English, you need to use English. So that's very interesting. So I just wanted to give you some insights into what the students told us. So there are a number of cases here. So the first one, the students say, I didn't use Arabic in the beginning. I still don't use it. So that's interesting. You know, I'm in Canada, so I have to use English. So I cannot use Arabic all the time. So I have to practice with English. It's hard, but I have to practice. And then they say something else, and then they add. So sometimes I listen to it in English and come back in Arabic. So I try to remember what is happening. So that's very interesting, because what we see in these students' testimony is that he really tries to focus on the language he wants to learn. So, which is logic, right? For him, it's English. So it's a vital matter, I would say. He wants to be able to get a job in this country, and he knows that he needs English. And we see in his reasoning that he really discovered the power of his own language that he can use if he really needs it. And it's interesting because he talks about using Arabic to better memorize. That's very interesting. So that's quite a discovery that he did while using Binogi. So in fact, while using Binogi, he discovered that he could use his own language and that he would memorize better. So he understood that using his first language allows him to better understand the concept and not to forget it. So give the student that room to learn from it, right? It might not be for them evident that their own language is going to help them to learn. The second case, the students say, so I said, you came directly from Eritrea to Canada. He said, no, I came from Ethiopia. So which language would you say the language you understand the best? Students, Amharic Tigrinya. Right, and did you have school in Amharic? No. So when you were in Eritrea, did you go to school? Yeah. So Tigrinya is a language that is on Binogi, right? And then the student says, first, I look at the video, then I look at the quiz. And you look at the video in which language? English. You never use Tigrinya? No, because I like English. You like English, right? And the subtitles, did you use English too? Yeah. So in the second case, we have a student who says, even if there is her own language, her or he does not use it. But interestingly, when we ask about his trajectory, he says, I was born in Eritrea, but then I went to Somalia. And in Somalia, I learned another language, which was Amharic, and I didn't go to school there. So in fact, one can almost speculate that he estimates that his level of Tigrinya does not allow him to understand the video in Binogi enough to use that language, and then chooses to use only English. 2 other cases, just to help us understand. I think it's good to listen to the students to better understand what's happening. So how did you use Binogi? At home, at school? Both of them, says the students. First, I watch the video. If I don't understand some words, I'm going to change in my language. Okay. And did Tigrinya help? Yeah, the hardest words. And did you use the subtitles? Yes, sometimes in Tigrinya, sometimes in English. So here we see a student who declares to use his own language every time he comes across a word that is too difficult. And it seems to work for him. So, you know, punctually, he switches to what the other language. He really finds it helpful. And the fourth case, so all of his students were in the same classroom, by the way. You never use Tigrinya? No, I want to improve my English. And my brother used my language because he doesn't understand some word. He used Tigrinya. So I suspect that this fourth student is proud of her English, which allows her to understand everything. But she says, well, my brother, he doesn't understand everything. So he does need Tigrinya. So I don't need it. So what you see, what I find very interesting in these examples is that the attitude, the students' attitudes toward the languages may change over the course of the year, right? And we saw that yesterday also in the quantitative data. We assume that they are going to start with their own language because it's easier and then switch to the English language. But it's not the case. Most of them start with English and stick to it. They really need to be encouraged to go to the other language and understand the importance of it for them. But again, we need to be flexible with them because it might not be helpful, as much helpful as we would like it to be, right? And then, yes, I wanted to remind all of us that Binogi is not only language. We heard about the many functions that Binogi had. And yesterday we saw a lot of subtitles. Students were using subtitles in English, right, to support their comprehension of the language. So this is to say, don't force your student to use one or the other language, but encourage them to try and to try and to try again, because most of them don't do it naturally. They really have this very strong sense, like Jim was saying this morning, or Robin too, that the school is a place for English, for the school language. And for them, it's really going against that to, even if the teacher said, you can, we really need to encourage them to do so if we want them to benefit from it as much as they would need it. But again, it might differ depending on the student.
Okay, so I will share some insights and creative strategies used by one of the schools participating in the research to promote the inclusion of families and communities. So the first one, it's the video that we started hearing. It's hosting an end-of-year celebration and providing awards for students who actually use the multilingual resource, Binogi. And those students have earned the highest points, accumulated the highest points, using the platform. So this is a snapshot of the vice principal, and maybe we don't want to. Okay, a snapshot of the vice principal talking during the end of year celebration. And then the awards were presented. Actually, the research team went to the school and Emmanuelle presented the awards to the students. So, that brings us into the second strategy, which is the gamification of the multilingual resource. So students, were motivated to use the platform more. They were trying to earn more points. And in addition to that, what happened is the teachers, made them ambassadors of the tool. So they became Binogi ambassadors by earning the highest points, and they were awarded during the, with specific awards during the end of year celebration. Another strategy was also, creating a sense of leadership and empowering those students, because those ambassadors were present, for example, during the parents' workshop, during the end of year celebration. They helped also, familiarize the audience with the tool so that, empowered those students. Another strategy was the organization of the workshops with the parents. Now, a large number of parents attended the workshop. There were many different spoken languages, for example, Dari, Bengali, Arabic, Spanish, and Tigrinya. There were interpreters, and those student ambassadors were present. Also, what happened is, we presented about the tool. The school circulated a lot of the multilingual resources. We had posters on the walls. So the families kind of got introduced to the different resources they can use. Now, the results were very, positive. The workshops were very well received by the parents. And we can actually click on this one. So first of all, you can see the student. This is the points they have earned, and they were very proud, showing everyone what they have earned, and the teachers were proud of them as well. And they wore the Binogi badges, and were going around talking to parents. And then we'll look at this small video showing, just the parent workshop, some pictures and images.
Times, for me, they give me a lot of strength at times, because I know if I can overcome those obstacles, I can overcome everything.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emmanuelle. Okay, so moving to the next slide, we talk a little bit about some tips. Consider incorporating the multilingual resources and activities into your lesson plan and home assignment. Explore digital resources such as Binogi, and consider utilizing those resources at home and also at school, and include parents and families in the learning process. And now I'll move it on to Dania to talk about another great workshop at the AB Academy.
I guess the video speaks for itself. This video was actually photographed, compiled, and done by one of the parents. So the messages you see in the video is what the parents got out of the workshop. We had a workshop with families, introducing Binogi, discussing lots of ideas with them. And then one of the parents put this video together for us. So we thought we'll share with you. These messages were all written by the parents, including multilingual videos, quizzes. We were extremely touched after this workshop, because we received that video that was created by the parents themselves after our visit. So for us, it was exceptional. And what was most exceptional is that when we introduced the workshop to schools, of course, they are amazing schools. So they said, okay, you want to do it, we're going to do it. But you'll see it's difficult. They don't come to school. But then they organized it. And in one of the schools from one of the biggest school board here, in fact, I think that up to 50 people showed up. They couldn't believe it. And they were so impressed. So they had organized very well. I need to say that. But they were so impressed that after that, they organized a series of workshops themselves for the parents around the library, around food, around all kinds of topics. And the parents came every week. So it was for them a discovery too. Okay, I wanted to conclude this with something that was brought to me by a very good colleague of ours, Stephen Berry. And it's in fact an article written by Thomas Vesky, in which he brings the human rights you talked about this morning, Robin, framework for assuring quality education. And what is very interesting is that he calls it the 4 A's, availability, accessibility, adaptability, and acceptability. And I kind of adapt those to the situation in which we are working right now. So for Tomaszewski, availability concerns, among other things, educational as a cultural right. So an education that respects diversity, particularly through the rights of minorities. So let's ask ourselves the question, to what extent are the cultures of our students respected in our teaching content? Are we open to their input that not only helps them understand understand building on what they already know, but is also a great enrichment for the class. And we have seen this in the case of the teaching of mathematics by recognizing, for example, that there are often several methods to come to the same solution and that the conventions in the different countries are not always the same. So what's the problem with that, right? The second being accessibility. In Tomaszewski, it concerns the right to education. Education is universal, free, and compulsory as soon as possible. But from the perspective of this project, we'd like to add, to what extent do the family of your students have access to the curriculum taught? To what extent are we open to real collaboration on the content taught? In this project, we brought the curriculum from Ontario to the families and exchanged on their own curriculum, and we obtained great results. The third one being adaptability. So schools need to adapt. They need to meet the needs of each child in accordance with the Convention of the Rights of the Child by offering them tools adapted to their needs. So for instance, by working with a resource like Binogi in their own language, then we do meet the needs of some of our students, not all of them, but already some. So that's what the adaptability should be. And then the fourth one, which is often a bit tricky, the acceptability one. So each of us, for those who have children among us, we have been extremely careful in choosing the school to which we sent our own children, right? And we did that because we believe it is important. So we believe in the education that is given in that particular school, even if sometimes we make error, right? So let us ask ourselves the same question. To what extent are the families of the students able to adhere to the system, to the program, to the pedagogy in place? To what extent, if they had the choice, would they choose the school you are working in? To what extent do the different partners in education, families, educators, and decision makers agree on the whole? To what extent? So in this project, we really try not only to bring the Ontario curriculum to the family, but also to discuss their own. So this reciprocity we talked about yesterday. So I would say, if you hesitate about it, invite us and we'll come. Okay.